Hello everyone, and happy Valentine's Day here soon in just a couple of days. So when we talk about my article today, Happy Valentine's is just one day in the year, I really want to explain for those of you who are just getting started with your relationships and marriage that, you know, of course it's a special day. There's no disregard for that. And yet, in all the many years that I've been with my husband, I have to really smile and think to myself of how much we grow in understanding that any calendar event can really, truly put a lot of pressure on someone, especially when they are more into just enjoying every moment and seeking each moment as truly an opportunity to express one's love. And then all of a sudden when we hold them to certain days of a calendar, it's to me, I have learned, just having shared with you in my article about how I found a card that my papa had given to my mom. And honestly, I had also shared that it probably was the only one, if not one of the very few, having gotten to know my papa. It's interesting because having married my husband, I recall making it a big deal that he remembered the very first time that we were together and celebrating Valentine's Day, that he would remember that. And I gave him this major silent treatment all day until all of a sudden he got the clue and he went and got something. And yet it's like somehow it was a catch-22, because once he did get something, then it was this feeling of, well, that's not so special anymore, because it was almost forced rather than something that he thought of on his own. And so I want to say that I held him accountable for that. And then, it was like he never, ever won in those cases that I was teaching him to acknowledge certain days, and most especially always Valentine's Day. And so my papa was the same way. And I remember in the article that I had shared is that I remember just giving him the urgency, or just whispering to him, "Papa, you need to go get something for Mom," And so he was like, "Okay," and he went, and it took him maybe 30 minutes, and he comes back and he gets this coffee maker, and he was so excited, and my heart was pounding for him because I wanted him to do right by my mama. And so when he went ahead and presented his gift with excitement, all my mom could say in her Filipino Spanish accent was, I don't even drink coffee, And so I just felt so bad for him, because he looked as if he was more disappointed in himself than my mama was disappointed in him. And it was that, again, catch-22. It just seemed like he wasn't going to win either way. And I felt like it made it even worse. Just rubbing that sand on skin is what I've heard as a term to really express moments like that, where, it just made it worse. It just made it worse. And in his look, it just seemed like they had been married for so long. And at that time, I felt like I contributed to his lack of success. And so when I started having that relationship with my husband, it's funny because we forget those. Those could have been moments of reflection for me to grow and learn that in relationships, your significant other, they really truly try, and yet we put them in that position where they feel like they failed either way. And so for me, after all these years, I can honestly say that my husband has bought me beautiful, beautiful gifts, very thoughtful gifts, and if you put a weight on it of price, then you would have thought this is the one gift that I truly would have remembered or cherished or loved even more. And yet when I look back, just looking at the card my papa gave my mom, I realized that maybe subconsciously I held on to it. Again, I don't know how I ended up having it, but it was more that it served as a reminder of the things that my husband has really done in our relationship that just put so much love and smile in my heart. And I remember the very first time when I went to work, and you know, it changed drastically our norm of many years being together, because I used to be home and I would be there back in the landline days where I was pretty much a homebody, still am. And so I remember just, you know, making sure that I would be there when he would call. And we would just have these conversations, you know, husband and wife conversations of how our day was. And it was always this excitement. You got to remember, we married young, we were together young. And so it was always this type of, you know, immaturity going into maturity type of conversations where we would just check on each other and talk, small talk. But it was our norm. And then all of a sudden, when I started working, that changed. No longer the conversations that we could have. And of course, anyone who's ever taught, you say, well, you know, other people will probably think you could still talk where you're at school. Your mind's somewhere else. Your mind is dedicated to the students before you. And even when they do go and to other classes and you have your planning is set to make sure that you continue on with your lessons and preparations and so forth, and your lunch. My husband used to come sometimes with food and we would have lunch. It's different. You're sharing amongst others, you know, in a school setting. You can't really have as much of a leisure, relaxed, and comfortable situation where you would have at home in your, you know, in your environment at home where you could have lunch perhaps, you know, and it's just different because you're in a work mode. And so for me, the most meaningful and priceless was truly getting those notes on my windshield, and never really shared them with anyone because they were so precious to me. But you know, just the ones that were the ones I remember that he would put in is like, I love you, your admirer. And then there are times where he would get even more silly, like, I'm watching you, I think you're hot. And you know, it's just, I would come home and I would see him giggle, and I would just, you know, say nothing. And then I knew, you know, we would have that type of communication, the nonverbal communication, because then he would say, hey, did you get anything special today? Duh. You know, and so I was like, okay. And I honestly wish, you know, when you take for granted these little notes, I wish I would just have kept them. But I would hold them in my jacket or in my bag, and you know, just look back at them and smile in moments that I just need that recharge. And now I look back and I go, goodness, why didn't I really hold on to those and laminate those and keep those? And here I am, thinking of all the many precious things that he has purchased for me or has bought me and come home with them just out of his kindness and thoughtfulness. And it doesn't matter what day. And yet those are the ones that I say to myself, if I had those, you know, those are the ones that really made me feel like you can't put a price on that, because he really put in time to go to my work, put it on my windshield, drive away, and then ask me at home, pretending that he didn't know anything. Just those moments, those are what counts. And you could beg to differ. It's not to say that my husband has not learned. We do train eventually to come home and, you know, with some flowers or box of candy or so. He knows me. He knows that I have specific things that, you know, that would really suffice my satisfaction. But at the same time, going out to dinner, just talking to him and just realizing this is the one that is with me for life. And no matter what we do, we are going to be together, and I need to grow and mature up in making sure that I be the best I can for him, as much as I know he's doing the best he can to be for me. And there may be times where it doesn't feel that way. And yet when I look and see his maturity and just the development in our relationship, I realize that we're stronger and better from all of those experiences that we have grown from. And I hope you're feeling the same way, so that in Valentine's Day, regardless of what you get, and if you're spiteful, it's that year where you're just getting some major grand things, that's amazing. Just remember, at the end of the day, you know, you would trade all of that for another extra moment with your spouse if you were to ever lose him or your partner. And that's what I have to cherish now, and realizing that, hey, you never know how much I had time with, how much time I have with this man, but I have loved and he has loved, and we are one, and nothing can, no special date can take that away. Every moment is what's to be cherished. In the words of my mother, God bless us all. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you, whether you're a singleton. Love yourself, because that is what is important, and just continue to do you the best way you can. Always forgive, because you're just growing. No matter what, don't forget to love. We'll see you next time.